Libyan eastern-based warlord Khalifa Haftar recently declared himself the ruler of the North African country, claiming he had a popular mandate to govern.
قد تابعنا استجابتكم لدعوتنا لكم بإعلان إسقاط الاتفاق السياسي المشبوه.
Haftar's statement was rejected by the internationally backed Libyan government based in Tripoli. Hello and welcome to this edition of Africa Today, which will focus on the reasons for the escalation of the conflict in Libya. In this edition, we shall also analyze the postponement of Ethiopia's elections due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm your host, Mubarak Kenya, and with me here is my colleague who will let us know what she has in store for you.
Hello, I am Sheila Nelima, and I will bring you news and events from all over Africa, and also take a look at your comments in social media. So stay tuned.
Libya escalation. Last April, Libyan renegade commander Khalifa Haftar declared himself the ruler of Libya, claiming he had a popular mandate to govern the country. The foreign-backed warlord vowed to move on with his assault to seize the capital, Tripoli.
قد تابعنا استجابتكم لدعوتنا لكم بإعلان إسقاط الاتفاق السياسي المشبوه الذي دمر البلاد وقادها إلى منزلقات خطيرة وتفويض من ترونه أهلا لقيادة هذه المرحلة.
The announcement came weeks after forces loyal to the internationally recognized Government of National Accord, GNA in Tripoli, expelled Haftar's troops from several key cities in the country's west. The Government of National Accord, headed by Prime Minister Fayez al-Sarraj, denounced Haftar's declaration and said it resembled a farce and a new coup.
Libya, a major oil producer in Africa, was plunged into chaos following a NATO-backed uprising in 2011 that toppled Muammar Gaddafi, who led the country for more than 40 years. Now, for an incisive analysis on the worsening situation in Libya, we contacted Edward Corrigan, an international human rights lawyer. Thanks for your time, Mr. Corrigan. Now, what pushed Haftar to declare himself as the ruler of Libya?
Well, there's a power vacuum in Libya after Gaddafi was overthrown and the country was largely destroyed by the Western intervention. There was French and Italian and British troops that were used to overthrow Gaddafi and to bomb the country. Haftar was involved with the so-called revolution, but he backed away from it, and he's not as strong in the Islamic sense. And he has a base in the tribes, and he's been very, very adept at cultivating the tribal loyalties.
Edward Corrigan, international lawyer.
Haftar, who has intensified attacks on unarmed civilians, is backed by some Western and regional countries, including France, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. A recent confidential report by the United Nations says 2 private military companies based in the UAE have sent foreign mercenaries to support Haftar in his offensive to seize the country's capital, Tripoli. Meanwhile, addressing the United Nations Security Council last week, Libya's UN ambassador Tahir al-Sunni said that government forces captured a number of Russian-made air defense systems at the Al-Waitia air base, destroyed UAE armored vehicles, and found tons of high-tech weapons. Al-Sunni said government forces and their allies have also killed and captured UAE-recruited mercenaries from Chad, Sudan, and Syria, and those sent by Russia's Wagner Group. The Libyan envoy urged the UN Security Council to urgently hold a meeting to address the role of the United Arab Emirates in the country's armed conflict.
On that, we wish to inform this Council that we have damning evidence of direct illegal transfer of these specific weapons to Libya by the United Arab Emirates in support of the war criminal and his militias, which these evidence we are sharing with the panel of experts. Therefore, we officially call today, and via our penholder, to urgently convene a meeting of the Council with a view of taking steps to end the systematic illegal actions by UAE in an attempt to overturn the legitimate government of Libya in violation to all related UN resolutions.
Libyan Prime Minister Fayez al-Sarraj censured the United Arab Emirates for backing an armed group opposed to the country's legitimate government.
ذكرناها يعني شنو اللي يخلي دولة زي الإمارات إن هي يعني تعمل هالقاعدة هذه الموجودة في شرق ليبيا أو ترسل طائراتها أو تدعم طرف. إن كنت تريدين دعم طرف هذا لا يكون على حساب الحكومة الشرعية اللي أنت معترفة بها.
Haftar is backed by Saudi-led Arab regional countries, and he also enjoys support of some Western countries. Why are they backing him?
Well, his major ally and support is from the United Arab Emirates, but he's also getting support from Jordan and from Egypt itself. So it's sort of an unusual coalition. I think the United Arab Emirates is trying to assert its authority and has a lot more money, but I think it's a power play by some of the regimes to increase their support and control in the area, also to get access to Libya's oil, and also to strengthen the claim to any oil that's in the Mediterranean, which is, I think, the reason why Turkey's gotten involved as well.
Thanks, and stay tuned for more.
Meanwhile, Turkey fully supports the internationally recognized government of Prime Minister al-Sarraj and has already signed a military deal with Tripoli, a move that angered Haftar and his regional supporters. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says that Sarraj requested the deployment of Turkish troops after a military deal between the two countries.
Çeşitli Avrupa ve Arap ülkeleri tarafından desteklenen darbeci generale karşı mücadele yürüten Trablus yönetimine her türlü desteği verdik, veriyoruz.
Turkey is also directly involved in the Libyan conflict by backing the Tripoli-based government. What is the ultimate objective of Turkey in Libya?
Well, I think Turkey wants to assert itself back into the Middle East in a way it was back in the days of the Ottoman Empire. And of course, there's contentions for the oil rights in the Mediterranean. Turkey has a military presence and has, partitioned Cyprus, and also Libya would have access to a lot of the Mediterranean and offshore oil rights. But you've got Greece, Cyprus, and Israel working together to exploit the resources for their own interests, and Turkey sees themselves as being shut out of that. And therefore, the oil interest is a major factor.
As the situation in Libya continued to escalate, the United Nations envoy for Libya resigned early March, citing health reasons after nearly 3 years in the post. The resignation was seen as a failure of UN diplomatic efforts aimed at resolving the protracted and devastating conflict in Libya. Appointed in July 2017, Ghassan Salam, envoy known for mediation skills, had been mediating between Libya's warring sides on economic and political and military matters.
The Secretary General has received a message from Mr. Salameh expressing his intention to leave his post as Special Representative for Libya. The Secretary General has always had full confidence in Mr. Salameh's work and the great efforts he has made to bring peace to Libya. The Secretary General will be discussing with Mr. Salameh the way to ensure smooth transition so as not to lose any momentum on the gains that have been made.
Ghassan Salameh resigned as UN envoy in March, citing stress. What frustrated him to abandon mediation efforts?
Well, because mediation efforts have not worked. There's still, increasing conflict between the two coalitions. And, Libya is largely still a tribally based society and doesn't have a cohesive national identity. And so therefore, it's weak, where you've got tribal forces supporting Haftar, opposing the government in Tripoli, opposing its urban and sort of Islamic bent, and of course they see themselves as being very independent.
Libya Libya is now turning into a battleground for regional and global powers, with the country's oil and gas resources becoming a key factor in the country's civil war. Libya's proximity to Europe, a major market for the country's energy reserves, has resulted in various powers vying for their interests in the country. What is next for Libya after Haftar's announcement? And is the country moving to a more dangerous escalation?
There's no, early resolution to this conflict. You've got two entrenched groups, both with a lot of power, both with foreign backers, and neither can do a knockout punch to the other. Haftar is sort of a strongman and a symbol for the tribal groups in eastern and southern Libya, but the government of national accord really doesn't have an identity, doesn't have a strong figure there that unifies either their own government. They don't have the ability to impose their will on the tribes in Libya, and Haftar has exploited that.
And now in this segment of our program, my colleague is ready to present you with news and events from across Africa. What do we have today, Sheila?
Thank you, Henia. Welcome to this part of the program. It's Sheila Nelima bringing you news from all around Africa. Tanzania has now become East Africa's avocado hub. The famous crop has moved from near zero to a multi-million-dollar crop. The Tanzania Horticulture Association revealed this in a report where they stated that exports of the crop have increased by nearly 10 times, earning $12 million in 2019. Now, in other news, Benin is looking for Africans in the diaspora willing to invest in the country. The project is being spearheaded by NGO Afford through an online questionnaire. They seek to examine the investment potential of the diaspora so as to strengthen entrepreneurship and create sustainable employment in Benin. Now, Rwandan coffee, Gorilla, has continued to rise in popularity. Gorilla Coffee, a Rwandan brand, sold over 3,000 bags in seconds at an online live stream event. The event was held on the electronic World Trade platform, a platform launched by the government and the Alibaba Group to offer African businesses access to new markets. Now, on to archaeological findings. Scientists have discovered the largest human fossil footprint site in Tanzania. The Engare Cerro fossil site has over 400 footprints that date back 19,100 to 5,760 years. The research indicates that the footprints were preserved on wet ash from a volcano eruption and dried up almost like concrete. Now, Felician Kabuga, the most wanted genocide fugitive, was arrested and delivered to Rwandan authorities. He faces accusations of planning, financing, and executing one of the worst recent genocides. He shall be tried at The Hague. The Rwandan authorities urge for international cooperation to bring all perpetrators to justice. Now, to have a look at recent awards, an image of Muhammad Yusuf chanting revolutionary poetry in Sudan's uprising took the world's press photo of the year. The image was taken by Yasuyoshi Chiba and was entitled Straight Voice. It has become the iconic symbol of the country's protest movement. Now, we have come to the end of this part. Visit our social media pages to interact with us. Share your views and comments on the program. Do stay tuned. We will be back with more.
Ethiopian elections postponed due to COVID-19.
Last March, Ethiopia postponed parliamentary elections scheduled for August due to the COVID-19 outbreak. The Ethiopia Elections Board suspended preparations for the vote due to public health risk. And on April 10, Parliament approved a 5-month state of emergency, giving authorities sweeping powers to battle COVID-19.
The postponement comes despite an earlier commitment by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed Ali that the crucial election will be held on schedule.
I think we will conduct election this year because this is constitutional mandate and we have to live up to the constitution. There might be lots of challenges, not only logistics, but also peace and security.
Now, for more on the political situation in Ethiopia, we have contacted Eric Wahlberg, a Canadian-based author and journalist. Thanks a lot for joining us, Mr. Wahlberg. Now, was the Ethiopian government justified in postponing crucial elections due to the supposed threat of the COVID-19 pandemic?
I think it would be a mistake to try and focus a huge amount of effort as the epidemic continues on elections. I can see that why they would want to postpone the elections under the circumstances. Although I'm glad to say that Ethiopia doesn't have a huge number of cases so far. But at the same time, there are 10,000 Ethiopians being repatriated from the Emirates, from wherever they've been working. So that will bring new complication.
Eric Wahlberg, Canadian-based author and journalist.
Opposition figures say the government is using the COVID-19 outbreak as a pretext to delay the election. Jawar Mohammed, a political candidate with the Oromo Federalist Congress in Ethiopia, says the board was already behind the schedule by weeks before the COVID-19 outbreak became an issue. He has also called for the establishment of a transitional government in Ethiopia as a way out of the current political crisis. In an interview late last year, Jawar Mohammed had warned that political suppression was creeping back into the country.
It's not in vain. Change has come, but that change has not been consolidated. The political sphere was opened up, but I think it's closing now. I think there is a risk of getting off the track. To be honest with you, I'm not sure if we are on the right track for the transition to democracy. What worries me is not even a return to dictatorship. I think we passed that exit. I think what our leaders need to be very, very, very careful is there is no social, economic, and security condition for return to dictatorship. If anybody tries to do that, that will be inviting not civil war, but catastrophic communal violence across the country.
Some opposition figures have suggested that elections should go on while observing health protocols. Is it feasible?
I know that the Tigray in the north, they have broke away from the ruling party and they have kind of People's Liberation Movement. They have decided to go ahead with voting. So without any authorization from the federal level. So there are opposition moves, and perhaps let them have some vote and see how it goes. And if it goes, then well, and that's maybe even a good idea to use Tigray as a test case.
The cancelled polls would have been both Abiy Ahmed's first electoral run since his 2018 appointment and last year's Nobel Peace Prize win. The uncertainty in Ethiopia comes with rising political tensions that might dent Abiy Ahmed's image and damage his peace credentials.
We want the Horn of Africa to become a treasury of peace and progress.
To avoid a political crisis and internal strife, how should Ethiopia be governed after the mandate of the current government ends?
There could be some kind of national unity government, which is often the case in wartime. For instance, Britain, Canada as well. We had the large parties work together and divide up ministerial seats, departments, whatever, to balance in a temporary way. So I think something like that would probably be, it would be necessary. You can't just go ahead and rule yourself if you're going beyond your own time limit, but you could work out an agreement with all parties.
The postponement of the elections in Ethiopia comes amid growing concerns about the impact of disinformation campaigns and hate speech in this ethnically diverse country. To control ethnic tensions, Ethiopia's parliament passed a law punishing hate speech with hefty fines and long jail terms. Some of those affected by negative ethnicity have spoken out.
ከጓደኞቹ ጋር ቁጭ ብሎ ያለ ነው ከርቭ ላይ ማለት መኖሪያ ቤታችን እንደዚሁ ነው መታጠፊያ ላይ መጣው ሆዱን እዚህ ጋር ወክተው ተሄዱት ነፍጠኛ ነክ አማራ ነክ ብለው ይወጉት
How should the Ethiopian government deal with the multiple security challenges the country is facing?
It's just announced that it does not approve of the dam, the great dam that is being built in Ethiopia on the Nile River. And it's almost complete, but by July it will be complete and they will start filling, Ethiopia will start filling the dam with water. So there's the huge crisis with Sudan and Egypt very angry and very unhappy with the dam. So that is more a serious problem.
While Ethiopia has postponed elections due to the COVID-19 pandemic, some African countries, including Guinea and Mali, held their elections amid the pandemic. Burundi has also kicked off presidential campaigns insisting that the pandemic will not affect the election process.
The government confirmed on Thursday that a letter had been sent to WHO country head Walter Kazadi Malumbo and 3 aides, ordering them out by Friday, while a Foreign Affairs Ministry official confirmed they had been declared persona non grata, without giving any reasons.
Some African countries have gone ahead and organized elections amid the COVID-19 pandemic. How will this pandemic impact on democracy and governance in Africa?
Oh, obviously, it's going to make it more difficult and to get voting that is acceptable and that is accessible to all and that is free from tampering. Africa has many governments and hopefully they can work together.
Thanks for that and stay tuned.
Welcome back. In this segment, we are going to look into our social media activities. In a recent episode, we discussed Tanzania's mining reforms. We had the pleasure of interviewing Ms. Linda Masarira, president of the Lead Zimbabwe Party. These were the comments on Twitter by our viewers on the matter. Dennis Wadudu stated that, "Amen, sister. It's a shame our leaders are so corrupt. As long as they benefit themselves, they don't care about the masses." Langton Maodza added that, "Not a presidential material." Nyakudira Muchamaya stated that it all makes sense. Now this brings us to the end of this part. Every view and comment is highly appreciated and valued by our team. Again, visit our social media pages and interact with us. Thanks for staying tuned.
And on that note, we come to the end of this edition of Africa Today, a program which brings you incisive analysis on issues affecting Africa, the rising continent. Thanks a lot for staying with us. From me, Mubarak Kenya.
And me, Sheila Nelima, and the entire team, goodbye and God bless.